Good morning again from Santa Cruz, up on the hillside above the Pacific, and we are following the aftermath, the cleanup, which continues. You can hear the chainsaw off to my left. Pacific in the distance. The winds are much lighter today. Yesterday, gust over 60 miles an hour. Loma Prieta, the mountaintop, the highest peak in the Santa Cruz Mountains, just northeast of here, clocked a wind gust to 98 miles an hour. So there is power out in this county. 11% of customers, about 19,500. Next door in Santa Clara, where San Jose is, 21%, so about a fifth. 1 out of every 5 customers in Santa Clara are without power. Now that the wind has died off, we can get the trees cleaned up and get the power back on. Fortunately, in this neighborhood, the power is underground. Boy, that's a savior because the power is on here, but the damage is done. Look at this car. I mean, obviously, if someone had been in here, they would have lost their life. Fortunately, no loss of life here. Everybody was either not home or, in this case, are inside. Big eucalyptus trees all over the place. They don't have much of a root structure, so they can come down with less wind than, say, a big hardy oak tree. And there is another tree over a car. I want to show you something we saw interesting last night. This is at the pier in Santa Cruz. Remember, we had 15 to 20-foot waves coming in off the Pacific, and the wind gusting over 50 at this point around sundown, picking up the tops of the waves, creating the sea foam, and then it's getting swirled around this building. So we had a couple of vortices. Someone commented online that on social media it may have been different directions. So it's just kind of an interesting thing I saw. I've seen sea foam plenty of times back on the East Coast and Gulf Coast, but I've never seen it swirl like this. You just have to have the perfect setup, and those winds, boy, they were howling. As you can see on the radar, the rainfall is done for now. It's not that it's not going to rain anymore, but boy, it is really backed off from here all the way up to the Bay Area. The flood watch goes till 10. My gut is they're not going to continue that, Jen and Alex. They're just going to let it expire, and we'll deal with the showers as they come and go. Had some blue sky earlier. Oh, there's a little blue sky over the Pacific. But right now, things are very calm, and the cleanup continues here in Santa Rosa. I think the big issue here, the trees, the power lines, the power overall, and not so much flooding. Did pick up so far 2¼ inches of rain, but that was spread out over about a day and a half. So unlike thunderstorms, 1 inch or 2 inches an hour, it was spread out. In fact, the river nearby, Lorenzo River, they were forecasting that to peak at over 20 feet, and they lowered that forecast, and it peaked at around 14 feet, well below flood stage.
Yeah, that's good news. And, Mike, it doesn't look that windy behind you today, so it looks like a day that power crews will be able to get back in and get power back on?
Yeah, it's virtually calm right now. I looked at the tops of the trees, and they're barely moving. I mean, it's a whole different world than yesterday. Yesterday morning, as we went through the morning, the wind really ramped up. Once that front came through and we got in what we would call the warm sector, things really got out of hand. And gust, as I mentioned, the mountaintop nearby, 98 miles an hour. And up in the Bay Area, they had a gust of 102 miles an hour. A lot of gust over 80 and 90 up in Marin County, just north of San Francisco.
Yeah, man, what a strong low pressure. Thanks, Mike.
Meteorologist Mike Seidel is there live with the very latest. And Mike, certainly a far cry from what we were dealing with yesterday, as those winds, they were swirling, they were howling. But now we're dealing and facing with the cleanup after all that mess.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. The rain has ended for now. We're not out of the woods. We're still going to have some rain here and there, but I think they're going to drop the flood watch here coming up at 10 a.m. But the wind has knocked down a lot of trees, and Steve Fairhurst is joining us, who has lived here for 15 years in this area. You've taken care of this area. There's how many complexes here?
There's 52 units in this complex.
And you've been here a long time. And how does this?
15 years for this complex, yes.
How does this storm rate compare to last January and previous storms?
This is the biggest storm we've had, biggest winds.
Wow.
Really heavy rains. Luckily, it wasn't on top of another storm, so there wasn't as much flooding, I don't think. But the winds did a lot of damage.
And the eucalyptus trees, they don't have much of a root system.
No, they're prone to falling.
Fair game,
yeah,
huh?
And there's a few hundred of them here, so easily.
It smells good out here.
It smells beautiful.
Yes, but you see what happened with these cars. Fortunately, nobody was hurt. A lot of folks were either indoors, or a lot of folks are down at the ocean watching the big waves.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And most of it came through in the middle of the night, so...
So what's the plan here?
Well,
we see the cleanup is underway.
Yeah, a lot of removing of the smaller stuff, everything that can be chipped, and then all these big logs will probably end up at the Santa Cruz landfill. They have the wood waste area where they can chip it in a giant chipper. But that chipper up the road is not going to take care of this stuff.
No, not at all.
Not
you also mentioned you're a marshal at the Pebble Beach Pro-Am.
Yes, I am.
So you were out there yesterday when they delayed and then canceled and then decided to go with just 54 holes.
Right.
Tell me what it was like out on the golf course yesterday, because it is right. I've been there before covering. It's right on the Pacific, and the wind has nothing to stop it.
No, and in certain areas on the course that are really on the ocean, it was pretty bad. But I was on the 2 and 3. You have a little protection, but it definitely becomes a problem with the golfers with those high winds, and becomes a safety thing.
Well, that was the whole reason. You know, you have to deal with Monterey and talk to them, the EMS folks. And what did they have to say?
They said that it was safety concerns to have anybody out there with the wind. Even with all their tents, they could just take off and blow away. So, yeah. So life was more important than golf in this situation.
Always.
Yeah.
Always. But it's just a fabulous view out there.
It's great. Yeah. Well, I go there every year for a week.
And?
Instead of doing this.
And then every week you tell me there's a windstorm.
Every year, last 4 years, on the last day or the day after, there's a windstorm. Because I do this for a living, and this is always what I come back to. Not this severe, but this is what happens. Trees fall. And usually a storm from the north, or the wind comes from the north, trees are weaker on the side they're not used to being pushed from, and trees fall. This one was just so big, it just couldn't stay up. So.
Okay, Steve Fairhurst, thanks for your insight.
Sure, of course.
And we'll hope that next year, at the end of the golf tournament, we don't have another windstorm.
Right. So look for me at the Pro-Am.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
There you go. Steve telling us what he has to do out here, Alex. In the summer, they have to come out and clean up, you know, do a little grass cutting. But believe it or not, they do have some fall color here. You see some of these trees are deciduous, so there is some fall color out here you know, you get into October and November. It's not all just greenery as you would expect in this part of California.
Wow, lots of cleanup, Mike. You can hear the chainsaws. They are purring and purring out there. Thanks for that. We'll check back with you here as we work our way through the rest of the show. That's right. You know, thousands of folks there in Northern Cal in the dark this after powerful winds knocked out trees and power lines.
Yeah, these storms are creating dangerous conditions on the roads as well as people begin their work week. And meteorologist Mike Seidel is in Santa Cruz. Mike, you know, one thing I wanted to ask too, what is the temperature like out there? You know, for California, it's not your warm and kind of balmy weather.
No, it's in the low 50s. The average high today is in the mid 60s. Now, yesterday, as we got in the proverbial warm sector and got more unstable and we had all those winds, we did top out in the low 60s. We even have some sunshine, and we have some brightening now. Looking out to the Pacific, I can see the Monterey Peninsula in the distance, where winds gusted in Monterey at 63 miles an hour. We are up here on a hillside above Santa Cruz, so no doubt we had winds gusting here at least 60 or 65 miles an hour because of the elevation. Loma Prieta, which is the highest point in the Santa Cruz Mountains, that's the beautiful drive between here and San Jose. That point is just below 4,000 feet, and they had a 98 mile an hour wind gust. So that's going to knock down some trees and knock out some power. Big eucalyptus trees. You can see the cruiser here getting the smaller limbs up. These are going to be carried out later on today. Fortunately, the power is buried here. You can see the boxes here. So the power is on in the neighborhood. That's always a good thing when your power is underground. Then it's a function of how does it get to the neighborhood and if those lines are down. But we've seen some improvement in power outages statewide. About an hour or so ago, we were at 525,000 customers. Now we're down just under 500,000 customers. And the wind has died down. So the wind is not an issue now in the North Bay down here to the Central Coast. It's all about getting the trees out of the way and the power lines back up. And you'll notice, I think they've been talking about it, in Southern California, power outages are very minimal. They're dealing with incredible amounts of rain and flooding, and they did not get the wind. So there it's the flood issue, here more so it's the power outages from here up into the Marin County area, Alameda County, the San Francisco Bay Area. So the rest of today, maybe a few more showers, but most of the rain now is to our south from Big Sur to Salinas and then heading up into the northern end of the Central Valley of California. Winds are light. It's all about the cleanup here and some residual showers. But big problems and dangerous weather continues in Los Angeles through the valleys, the San Fernando Valley and the San Gabriel Valleys. We'll go back there next. Out here on the West Coast covering the storm here on the Weather Channel. We'll go back to Southern California where they're getting hit hard with flooding rains. Up here in Northern California and the Central Coast, it's mostly about power outages. There was some flooding and some trees down, certainly on roadways. But look at this. These big eucalyptus trees have taken out several cars. And I'm seeing now that this tree here that they're chopping away at is over another car. Now, these big logs here, they're going to be trucked out, but they're getting in here and trying to do some of the shorter limbs and the ones that don't have as much girth. This car a total loss here, but another car under all this debris here on this hillside. In the distance, that is the Pacific. The winds came roaring up the hillside yesterday, gusting over 60 miles an hour into this neighborhood. Fortunately, the power is underground here, so that means they have power here, but big cleanup. And the gentleman here in the foreground, Steve Fairhurst, has worked here for 15 years. He's the landscape architect, so he's in charge of cleaning all of this up and taking care of the property. 15 years here. This is the worst wind he has seen. Let's go out to the Pacific and show you what it looked like yesterday. This is the other story. It was just amazing, the visual, when you have this kind of wind for more than several hours, and the wave heights off the coast at the buoys were upwards of 15 to 20 feet, even higher than 20 feet off the Point Sur, that's near Big Sur. Remember, they had that hurricane wind force warning up yesterday. We'd never seen one of those on the West Coast. So the waves have really backed off. You can see around here, looking at the tops of the trees here, these narrower eucalyptus trees, that there's not much wind. So that's going to get the power crews back up and get the power back on. Right now, in Santa Cruz County, 11% of customers, a little over 11% of customers are out, and that's just under 20,000 customers. So the power's got to come back on as the cleanup continues. But Alex and Jen, more about the power here, but down south, it is just continuing to rain in L.A. County, and that is all going to drift south into Orange and San Diego County. I did check John Wayne Airport in Orange County, and they've had about 1.5 inches of rain. So it goes to show you how localized those 4 to 6 inch totals are to the north up in L.A. County.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for now, but Mike, that plume is shifting south too, so we'll see what happens today. Really, I think we're just really getting into some of the heaviest of rain right then. I saw a new flash flood warning go out too, so
there you go, yeah.
We're in it. Mike, thank you for that.
One of the areas hit hard by heavy rain and powerful winds is Santa Cruz, California. That's where we find meteorologist Mike Seidel today. Mike, unfortunately, a lot of trees down behind you. Power outage numbers have been high in this area.
Yes, and by the way, the power is the big issue up here. We had a fair amount of rain, but not the numbers are getting down south. Here in Santa Cruz, we're up to about 2 3/4 inches. But you got to remember, that fell over about 18 to 24 hours, so it was spread out. We were on the air yesterday. It never rained extremely hard. It just slowly added up. The wind was the issue. We're up on this hillside above the Pacific, so the wind came up the hillside, and you get stronger winds the higher you go up usually. Loma Prieta, which is the highest point in the mountains here, the Santa Cruz Mountains between here and San Jose, is just below 4,000 feet. They gusted to 98 miles an hour. So the winds up here likely over 65, maybe 70 miles an hour. We know in Monterey 63, and look at this. 5 or 6 cars are total losses because of these eucalyptus trees that were blown down yesterday with those almost hurricane force winds. Now the chainsaws are out. There's another car under that pile of debris, and they're going to try to get this cleaned up and get these big logs carried out, or lifted up and carried out later on today. Power outages statewide, they are coming down. And again, if you see the whole state, most of them on the Central Coast and the North Bay. That's basically where all the power is out. Here in Santa Cruz County, we are still just below 20,000 customers. That's been holding pretty steady, 11% of the power base. But the good news statewide is a couple hours ago it was 525,000, now down to 480,000. The reason being the wind has just basically disappeared, so now the crews can get up and get their bucket trucks up, get the trees down off the roads, off the power lines, and get the power back on. So the cleanup continues. There's the Pacific in the distance. The wind just blowing up the hillside yesterday. And let's show you the surf from yesterday. Boy, I've covered a lot of hurricanes and tropical storms. I've seen a lot of big waves, but look at this surf. We're talking 20-footers plus at the buoys off the coast of Point Sur, south of here. Monterey Coast getting battered by these 15 to 20-foot waves. But this really brought the locals out. They were interested in seeing what it looked like right there on the Pacific.
We get rain and we get wind, but the combo of the two and the look at the ocean like that, it doesn't happen that frequently. So it's exciting.
Steve Fairhurst, who is the landscape guy here, he takes care of the property. He's been working in this, well, kind of a subdivision for 15 years. And we talked to him earlier. He's never seen this much wind damage from a storm, even counting last January. That was more of a flooding issue. So, Alex, that goes to show you 15 years. This is the worst he's seen as far as tree damage on this hillside as the cleanup continues here on a Monday morning in Santa Cruz.
Yeah, I mean, just all the debris behind you, not to mention then the trees on vehicles and on the roads. Mike Seidel, we're going to be checking back in with you. Thanks so much for the report.
Good morning once again from Santa Cruz County on the hillside above Santa Cruz. I'm meteorologist Mike Seidel. And the big story here was the winds, not so much the rainfall, although we did get 2 3/4 of an inch of rain. That fell over a long period of time, not like what we're seeing now in SoCal. We'll get the update from there shortly with Alex and Mike. But I want to talk to Sydney Dickinson, who was here for the storm, not right here where you live, but you were over at the university with your boyfriend.
Yes.
Talk about what happened over there, and then we'll get back to the situation here.
Okay, we woke up in the morning and trees had fallen on campus as well by the trailer park, and one actually fell on my boyfriend's car. So we were trapped there for a little bit, and once that was cleared, we were able to come down here, and then came here and noticed that all of these trees were fallen too.
Let's get the background on this car here, because you saw someone in the car.
Yeah, I spoke to a gentleman who said that before the second tree fell, which was on the gold vehicle, he was waiting in his car, presumably to go to work or something, and he heard the first tree fall, so he got out and ran, and as he was running, the second tree fell right on top of his car.
Wow. Close call, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, now the bad news is lightning struck twice.
Yeah.
First your boyfriend, and now your car. And we didn't even know their car was there, Sydney, earlier. Let's walk down the hill here. It's a Toyota RAV4.
Yes.
And you parked it here. Now, last month you had a garage.
Yeah, I switch on and off with my roommate.
So now we see your RAV4 under the debris. I didn't know, we got out here a few hours ago. We didn't see a car there, but
Yep.
It looks like it may be drivable.
I know, it's hard to tell. Once they get the branches off the windshield, I'll be able to tell, but I was told it was totally crushed, so I'm happy to see any piece of it still alive.
Well, yeah, you're gonna need something to keep the rainfall out. But you talked to an insurance agent already.
Yeah, I filed my claim and everything, so once all of this is cleared, I can get it towed and have it taken care of. But
Well, more importantly, you're okay. Not a
I'm
scratch.
okay, not a scratch.
Just-
Everyone's all
But
right.
0 for 2 on the cars.
I know, it's a bad day to be a RAV4.
How long have you lived? Well, you're from Pasadena.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about your mom and sister are still there. They've been hit hard, but not so much there off the 210.
Not so
What is she
much.
telling you?
She hasn't told me much. I've just been seeing some pictures and videos. Pretty much what the inland always gets: a bunch of rain, some wind, but not as much as here.
But no word on anything coming down the mountainsides there out of the
Not
mountains.
yet.
Well, that's
and
good.
we've had some mudslides there before, so they kind of barricaded a lot of the area.
Well, that's good. Well, I'm glad everybody's okay in SoCal, and you're fine here.
I'm fine.
Okay, Sydney Dickinson, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much.
And good luck on the car and getting your car back. Again, the cleanup continues, Alex. They're cutting the smaller diameter parts of the tree up. The bigger pieces there are going to be carried out by heavy equipment later on today. So this is really the story, the power in the central coast here in Santa Cruz County. But once you get down to Monterey and then south of San Luis Obispo County, that's 2 counties down, really you run out of the power outages. They have not gotten anything like we saw wind-wise. It's all about the heavy rain down here. Up here, still a lot of power out. Statewide now it's down to 478,000. So we've dropped about 50,000 customers in a couple of hours. So we're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Thankfully, the weather is much, much better today. The wind is basically calm up here, and there's little, if any, rain from here up into the Bay Area.
Yeah, now it's the sound of work and especially chainsaws. Mike Seidel, thanks so much. We're going to check back in with you. Of course, our meteorologist Mike Seidel has been monitoring the scenes across the West, including the state of California. Mike, you have had some of the worst of the rain and some of the worst of the wind. Now, that has backed off today, but there's been a lot of cleanup underway there in Santa Cruz.
Yes, indeed. We had some rain here, just under 3 inches in Santa Cruz, a little higher in the mountains. But really the story up here and up into the North Bay and San Francisco, not so much the impact from the rain, but the impact from the wind gust. 102 miles an hour up in Marin County. Not far from here, the mountaintop, the highest peak in the Santa Cruz Mountains, Loma Prieta, just under 4,000 feet, gusted to 98 miles an hour. No doubt the winds up here on this hillside above the Pacific gusted upwards of 60 to 70 miles an hour. We have one of the residents here. This is Charlotte Crysdale, who unfortunately has lost her car, and it's right behind us.
Yeah.
Now, when did you find out about that?
I saw the tree fall and I heard it fall on someone's roof, and my housemate was like, "What about your car?" So I went out to look, and by then it was too late.
Well, this is it right here, this Nissan?
Yes.
And what's the deal with the insurance?
The insurance won't cover any of it because apparently the natural disaster and trees falling on your car isn't covered under what insurance we have.
Oh my gosh. Well, sorry to hear that, but you're okay?
Yes, I'm so glad. Like, no one was hurt. No one in any of these cars got hurt or in this neighborhood, so that's good.
And so what was it like being up here during those winds? Was it really just howling and you could hear the roar?
Yeah. I've never been scared of weather before, but in my house the windows were shaking and all sorts of scary sounds, and I'm just glad I have housemates to be with as well, so I wasn't alone during the winds.
Well, that's good to hear. So you've been in California a long time, and this is really the worst you've experienced.
Yeah, I mean, I've never had anything this scary, especially after the first tree fell. I was just constantly waiting for another one to fall. I wanted to get out of here, but I couldn't because of my car. I had nowhere to go.
Well, it's better in this situation generally to stay inside and stay indoors. But you can see they're cleaning up very nicely. So what's your plan now with the car?
I'll have to hopefully be able to catch the bus, but sometimes the buses are a little unreliable, and it's also midterms week, so I can't just skip class. So I have to figure out a way to campus.
Well, good luck on the midterms. And a shout out to UCSC, University of California, Santa Cruz. And I have to say, I love the mascot. What's the mascot?
Banana slug.
The banana slug.
Yes.
Now, I'm not sure, does that rate up there with the TCU Horned Frogs of Texas?
In my opinion, banana slug is the best.
I love it. I love it. There's a slug right on your pullover.
Yes.
So thanks for joining us, and good luck with the car, and good luck with your midterms.
Thank you so much.
Okay, there you go. Charlotte Crysdale from Petaluma up in the Bay Area, living here, and as she said, she's never been this scared before, Alex, in a weather situation. So that says something. And the landscape architect here, who's covered this area and has dealt with this complex for 15 years, earlier told us this is the worst windstorm damage he's seen in this here area for 15 years. So it says a lot about what kind of wind we had yesterday in this part of the Central Coast.
And you feel for her. You know, exam weeks are stressful enough. Now you've lost your vehicle and you've got to rely on a transit system you don't often use. So, you know, a tough week for her. I appreciate her talking to you. Mike, we're going to get back out to you.
Good morning once again. We're out here in Central California on the Central Coast in Santa Cruz County, just up the hillside from the Pacific, and the winds just roared up these hills yesterday. Elevation matters. Loma Prieta, the highest point in the Santa Cruz Mountains, just off to our northeast, gusted to 98 miles an hour. Not that strong here, but it doesn't take as much wind. These eucalyptus trees don't have much of a root system, very shallow, and you can see there's one car there totaled. We talked to the girl earlier, and she was in her home just around the corner here and said she has never been that scared in her life when it comes to weather, and she was happy to have her roommates here. Otherwise, we've got more cars that have been damaged. This one we didn't even see a few hours ago because it was covered in debris. They've cleaned this up. They're going to come back and start the process all over. Let's bring in Steve Fairhurst again, and thanks for joining us. And you told us earlier you've worked this subdivision as a landscape architect for 15 years.
Correct, yes.
And tell us what you told us about the wind.
This has got to be the worst wind in 15 years I've seen here, and it was nonstop all night long. So it definitely, in my eyes, breaks the records for the duration of time as well, and really heavy rains at the same time.
And worse than last January.
Definitely.
Did you have cleanup last January, even close to this?
No, it was. I expected to come here and deal with a lot of leaves. And that was it. And a few limbs.
Right.
And that was it. Not 150-foot trees.
Well, you're making progress.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. You can drive down the road now.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And the wind is backed off. So thanks for joining us. Good luck. And hopefully this doesn't happen again next winter.
We'll see. Come back same day. I'll see you.
Yeah. He says every time he's a marshal over at Pebble Beach, the golf course with the PGA Tour. He said every year, the past 4 years, they've had a windstorm as the tournament ends. But back here, the weather has improved dramatically. The power is coming back on. In fact, when we started coverage 4 hours ago, statewide, 525,000 customers were out. Now we're down to about 460,000. So we're making some big inroads in the power getting back on. And Mike, it's all about up here, down south, it's all about the rain. Few, if any, power outages down there. They fortunately just didn't get the wind we had up here, the 98 I mentioned and the 102 up in the North Bay in Marin County. Exceptional wind, and it just didn't blow for an hour. It blew for hours on end from late yesterday morning to late last night.
And this is why we just are hearing chainsaws. Just about anyone with your live shots, Mike, you're hearing that roar of chainsaws. But glad that people are doing okay. That is good to know out of all this. Mike, thank you very much. And more live reports from California still to come.